Welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by the man who I believe is 8th choice in the US depth pool for left back. His name is Taylor Rockwell, and he's not even left-footed. Hello.
Hello. I'll take that. I feel like that's an honor and a privilege. I will take that.
It might also be a depressing reality.
Also that.
So this is our England versus US men's national team preview. The game is, Thursday, 3 p.m, ESPN 2. Worth noting, when England says it's 3 p.m, we start at 3 p.m.
Do you say it's 3 p.m. or do you say, 1500 or something like that?
1500 GMT.
Yes, yeah. There we go. Yeah.
But yeah, the game is 3 o'clock Eastern United States kickoff. We got some. Before we get into the actual details of the game, we've got some US roster updates. We got some out, some one in. How about that?
Yes. We had, I think earlier in the week, we had Zach Steffen and Darlington Nagbe. I don't think they even joined up. I think they just kind of withdrew from the squad.
They did not get on that plane.
They did not, both due to hamstring injuries. And then I think earlier today, it was reported by Jeff Carlisle that Anthony Robertson twisted his ankle in training.
So he's on crutches.
He was seen walking with crutches in the hotel lobby. Whether or not that was a overly precautious precaution or a necessary precaution, I am not sure. Josh Sargent also training independently of the team, not doing any aggressive training because he also has an ankle injury.
But to replace them all, we got one call-up.
Yeah, we did.
It's Jonathan Klinsmann,
yeah, it is.
Goalkeeper for basically Hertha Berlin's U23s.
Yep. Yeah, which is a sensible call-up, given that if you're replacing a goalkeeper and you're playing in Europe, you're going to want to look for maybe a European option that could be brought over that much more easily.
Yeah.
So I think that makes a little bit of sense. That said, there are probably some other more deserving candidates looking specifically in Major League Soccer's direction.
Yeah, maybe Bill Hamid?
Bill Hamid. I would say Luis Robles probably could have gotten a look after what he did or has been doing in the playoffs.
I have a theory here, though. Do you remember? So we've got Jonathan Klinsmann scouted in the TSS Scouting Network by Jim Brochar.
Stephen Fry could also maybe get a call. That would have been fine, too.
Seattle fans, thank you. But listen up. Jonathan Klinsmann, as Jim Brochar told us in the Scouting Network, was called in to in September, a big German goalkeeper camp.
That's right.
Where there were players from different age groups called up. Jonathan Klinsmann was one of those guys they looked at. He's also Olympic age eligible. So I think this call-up might be a way of just making sure Jonathan Klinsmann stays with the US.
Yeah, I mean, and even if they're not, because even if they're not overly concerned about, there are many goalkeepers in the pipeline for the US national team, but it is maybe more of even a PR headache if he were to play for Germany instead, because that is a thing that Klinsmann, that name resonates around the world because of what his dad did at least at playing level, maybe not at managerial level. But so I think you maybe would see a story in The Guardian about how Klinsmann's son chooses Germany over USA. Right. So I think if you're the USA, you want to maybe cut off any of that possibility of those stories coming out. So maybe you give him that call up.
Right. So Stefan out, Jonathan Klinsmann in.
And we did have the reports as well saying that he had kind of responded to a lot of the criticism or just the overall the constructive criticism from Hertha goalkeeping coaches about his poor performances or his lack of ability.
Too American, they called him.
Exactly,
back in the day. Yeah.
And it seems like he's gotten rid of some of that. He's become more German in his efficiency.
But now he's going to become more American.
There we go.
And what is more American than being the third choice keeper who doesn't get involved?
Exactly.
Okay, so that's all your team news. We'll get into the details of maybe starting lineups and what we want to see from the US later. But first, let's talk about the US's opponent.
If we must.
It's my other team, England. US are playing England at Wembley.
They are.
I want to set the scene. This is obviously the least of England's games over this international break.
Hurtful.
Because they have that UEFA Nations League game on Sunday against Croatia.
They do.
Where they could either win their UEFA Nations League group or be relegated. So there really is a lot on the line.
Or stay in there. It could be any number of things,
But basically...
It's all to play for and forever to play it in.
But that really means that that Croatia game is going to be England's main focus over this international break. So I suspect England will field still a strong lineup, but maybe not the absolute first choice lineup against the United States.
I think that makes sense.
Just to our advantage, maybe.
Yeah, because I think if you're Gareth Southgate, you're looking at this. Maybe they do continue with the 4-3-3 as opposed to the back three.
Yes.
And so maybe this is another opportunity.
Back three's generous. It was a back five.
It was. But this is an opportunity to get more people more familiar with it, to just get a few more rhythms in there or rotations in there. So maybe you will see some of their more 4
Is it because
consistent starters.
we've been talking about Klinsmann, you're thinking of finding the rhythm?
Yes, exactly. But it's also, you maybe want to see, like, just give Harry Kane a few more reps in there. That was the word.
Oh, yeah, he definitely needs the experience.
I've been reading about Total Football. I should have known to go with reps, because Johnny Rep is the man.
Johnny Rep. All right, so yeah, we do expect a 4-3-3 from England with, based on what we've seen in the media, it's the Wayne Rooney has been the big news, his call-up. The English media seemed really distracted by that whole thing.
Yep.
He's basically, from what I've read, going to play like 10, maybe 15 minutes.
It's a disgrace, Daryl.
Don't get me started.
It's an abomination. It's a disgrace to the shirt that's never been disgraced before by any player wearing the England jersey ever.
And he's won it 119 times before.
Well, there's that.
And he's the all-time top scorer.
Also that.
So yeah, Rooney's going to come off the bench.
For all-time appearance leader for the men. Throwing that out there. Not all-time appearance leader for all England players.
Is that right? Is there a woman with more?
That was a distinction the BBC made very, very clear on multiple occasions. I did not do the research, but I'm going to assume that implies that, yes, there's somebody else in there.
Either way, he is going to be just coming into the game for the last little spell, and it seems that Harry Kane will start.
Yep.
So that right there is a nice test for US defenders, whoever they may be.
Yes. Matt Bielska, indeed. So if it is the 4-3-3, we expect it will be Harry Kane starting centrally, probably wearing the captain's armband.
Definitely.
Then maybe giving it to Wayne Rooney around the 70th or so minute.
That's what I expect. Then we don't need to go through the whole England team, but I think the things that will catch people's eye will probably be the players around him. If it's the new 4-3-3, and I think it is, because Southgate tends to stick with a formation switch for a long time after he does it, he will be flanked by two of either Raheem Sterling, Jadon Sancho, who seems to be now a regular in the squad, Marcus Rashford, and at a push, maybe Jesse Lingard.
Right. Yeah, and that's a big question mark I have, is who do we see start wide and for how long? Because, again, I think a big point, as you've already said, is going to be that looming Croatia game.
Yeah.
Do you want to rest some
players? Only 2 days in between.
Exactly. So do you want to play your full-strength team knowing that potentially somebody could get hurt, or even just it's already some tired legs coming through mid-season? So maybe we see a little bit of experimentation there to give some people some breaks.
Yeah.
I don't know who necessarily will start out wide, but if I had to guess, I would say it's even possible we see Jadon Sancho and Raheem Sterling
that would be terrifying
starting
for
opposite
American
of Harry Kane,
fullbacks.
or on either side of Harry Kane, rather.
My guess would be that Sterling is the one that gets a little rest, and it will be Jadon Sancho on the right and Marcus Rashford on the left. Just so Sterling gets a break, Sancho gets a start, and then Sterling against Croatia. That's my guess. We don't know.
We don't know.
We'll see what happens.
We will see what happens.
We also expect a three-man midfield, which will be anchored by either Jordan Henderson or Eric Dyer. As a US fan, I would hope it's Eric Dyer. As an England fan, I would hope it's Jordan Henderson.
See, okay, here's my question. Would you? Because would you want to see, that probably means it's Eric Dyer against Croatia, then.
Oh, then no.
There we go. So I think,
with all respect to Spurs fans, Henderson is the superior pivot.
Yes, and I think with that in mind, we probably will see it be Eric Dyer. If I had to guess again with that midfield three, I think it's probably Eric Dyer, because you give Jordan Henderson a little bit of a rest. Maybe we see Henderson in the last 20 minutes or so when Rooney comes on as well.
England team news that we know of: Kieran Trippier has pulled out, so England will have to choose between Kyle Walker and Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back.
Tough choices.
Trippier with a groin injury, I believe. Right? He tried pulling his shorts up really tight just to see if that would do the trick, and it didn't.
Sadly, no.
Do you remember him doing that?
I do, yes.
Turns out not a medical solution.
I also saw him doing that in the photo when he sustained the injury against Crystal Palace. Those shorts were very high up once again.
It's just a thing he does.
Evidently.
Just a thing he does.
So then do you think it will be your preferred or like usual starting center backs then in the back four, or would you expect some experimentation there?
Definitely not Harry Maguire. He's not in there. Actually, I haven't looked it up, but I assume that he has some sort of injury.
That would make sense.
Harry Maguire. So the big starter, whether this is sort of a more first choice or not first choice team, is John Stones.
Yep.
I would guess he starts because so much of what England want to do goes through John Stones, because famously under Southgate, the New England thing is to try and pass it out of the back, and a lot of that revolves around John Stones' confidence with the ball, his willingness to sometimes take people on, but sort of get quick passing going out of the back.
See, and I'm going to try to refrain from going back and forth on these types of things when it comes to formations and positions, but actually that does maybe is a good argument for why you would see Jordan Henderson start in the middle, because maybe if this is a relatively new formation, they're still working on the specifics of it, then you start the spine and maybe you have a little bit of chopping and changing out wide. So maybe it is, say, John Stones and Joe Gomez, for example, and then it's Jordan Henderson ahead of them, and then it's Harry Kane ahead of him. That is your sort of more consistent team that you might usually see for England.
Okay, yeah. And then maybe the more experimental thing would be like if Lewis Dunk starts, even alongside John Stones. That is uncharted territory for the England national team.
It is. One name we haven't mentioned, who could very well start, but I don't really know where, so I'm going to put it to you. Where do you see Dele Alli fitting into all of this? He's recently returned from injury. He is starting now for Tottenham, so he's back to, we assume, relatively full fitness, if not full fitness.
I would imagine as part of the midfield three, if only because in the 5-3-2 that England played at the World Cup, he was one of the midfield three. There was usually like Henderson or Dyer in the centre, and then players to the left and right of him, and Dele Alli was to the left and right of the central midfielder. That's my guess. But at the same time, he theoretically could play as one of the wingers. It would feel a little unnatural, right? Especially given how many other guys are available to play there.
I would say so.
Yeah.
And that means you also do have Ross Barkley.
No US players get nutmegged by Dele Alli. That should be the ground rule for this game. Don't get nutmegged by Dele Alli.
I mean, he's going to try. I feel like it might happen.
If he does it, he owns your soul forever.
Is that how it works?
It is. That's why he does it.
Was that what the Dele Alli challenge was too? Everybody who did it, he owns your soul too?
Yes.
A lot of people are in trouble. That also means that we do have Ross Barkley and Ruben Loftus-Cheek in the same team again. Yeah. And I'm wondering, like, do you think, is it like a knife fight to settle who gets that position? Both for England and for country? Or for club and country?
That's a weird reference given the focus on knife crime in England.
Is that a thing?
But it is, it's a thing because we don't have guns.
Yeah.
But I am happy either way. Okay. I love both those players. I enjoy both the creativity of both those players, so I'm happy Ruben Loftus-Cheek or Ross Barkley.
Okay.
Barkley's weirdly a starter at this point. He started against Spain, I think, with Harry Winks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, you can pick from a number of players to play central midfield.
I still can't believe the resurgence he's had under Sarri
Barkley?
at Chelsea.
It's magic, isn't it?
I suppose so, unless you're Ruben Loftus-Cheek, in which case you're not so thrilled about that magic.
Yeah. True.
I would assume. And then one more for you. Do you expect it to be Jordan Pickford in goal? Do you think we'll see some experimentation there?
I honestly have no idea. If we're picking the strongest lineup, then yes, 100% definitely Jordan Pickford. If not, there's a lot of other options, right? It could be Butland, it could be Bettinelli, it could be McCarthy.
Yep,
I honestly don't know who it's going to be. The thing I will say for US fans watching is if it's Jordan Pickford, then he is by far the best with the ball at his feet. So we will need to, as the US, I'm going to start saying US and England instead of we because it'll get confusing. The US will have to really watch where Jordan Pickford is passing those balls out of the back. Because as Spain found out, he can hit you with a dangerous long ball. He can ping balls to the side and land it at a winger's or a fullback's feet. That'll be a thing to be scared of for England.
That would be, and as you said, we're going to talk about this more when we get to the US, but that is a big concern of mine, is obviously that he can stretch the field and look long. If maybe the US is trying to play a high line, there's space behind for Harry Kane or the very rapid wingers you've already mentioned. But there can be those little kind of 30-yard like chipped lifted passes that bypass the first wave of US pressure or the line of defense, and then they can fall to the feet, and then suddenly you've taken out 2 or 3 players. It puts you in a better position if you're England.
So maybe let's look at this from, maybe we'll propose solutions when we talk about the US, but just the things to be scared about. What are England's threats that the US at least have to be thinking about?
I mean, I think Pickford's distribution is a big one for me. I would say whomever starts out wide as your fullbacks for England, we know they're going to be attacking, and we know they're very much capable of attacking. So as you said,
it could be Chilwell or Shaw on one side. It could be Kyle Walker or Trent Alexander-Arnold on the other side. None of those guys are defense-first fullbacks, right? These are guys that are going to get forward.
And we said Anthony Robinson was injured, but I still expect it to probably be DeAndre Yedlin starting against England. So then if you've got England or Yedlin trying to get forward, you've got England's capabilities going down that left channel, being aggressive at attacking. I feel like that is definitely an area that I have some concerns about for the US.
I'm going to guess a lot of people listening won't be familiar with Ben Chilwell, but he is dangerous. He sort of dribbles forward, he'll drive inside or outside. You've really got to watch out for him. So that's a name to be aware of, I think. The other thing from me for England is a lot of balls into Harry Kane with his back to goal, and then he'll either try and very slowly turn you and create a shooting opportunity, or he's very good at sort of holding you off and spreading the ball wide. So I think we've really got to watch out for ball into Kane and then the ball spread out wide to the wingers, which could be Sterling, Rashford, Sancho, any of those guys.
And I think we often talk about, and if we're Daryl, criticize Harry Kane's pace or lack thereof.
No, I don't criticize. I'm more impressed that he manages to travel so far without picking up speed.
I think
it's an achievement.
But I still think he's faster than maybe people expect him to be.
Yeah.
And maybe there are defenders out there who rely on speed as if to say, like, oh, yeah, but if Harry Kane gets by me, I'll be able to catch up to him. But it does feel like so often defenders that are reliant on their physical abilities against Harry Kane are exposed either because he can outrun them or he can hold them off, or he's just clever enough to have a little cutback, they go running past, and then he gets that clear shot off. We also know he can be very clever when it comes to attacking set pieces or not being able to attack them because he's been pulled down for a penalty.
Which he's probably made happen to begin with.
Yeah, yes, maybe that.
But you're right, the big threat from England, even at the World Cup, the main threat from England was set pieces, right?
Yep.
They had a lot of designed corner kicks and free kicks where they would maybe set picks to get someone loose, or they would have... this is obvious, but corner kicks that were well executed where you would like go to the far post and say Stones would be there to nod it back down or across to Kane at the other post. You know what I mean? So they have a lot of designs like that. I think, do you want to talk about it now or do you want to talk about it later? Like the way that the US can maybe not fall victim to England's set piece prowess.
Let's talk about it later. Okay. Right now we can just point out that it's definitely a strength of England's on set piece attacking, either from a free kick or from a corner. It will make me nervous every time England have one of those, and I expect them to have several if the U.S. plays the way we think they will. One more question about style of play. We've basically been talking this entire time as it being a 4-3-3. I'm curious, like how surprised? Yeah, how surprised would you be if England did come out in the back 3/5 again?
Very, very, very surprised because, based on what Southgate has said, he sees the 4-3-3 as the progression forward from the 5 at the back, right? The idea being that England, for the first time in a long time, we're going to start being a team that possesses the ball and plays it out of the back. Not all the time, but more than usual. And it was easier to do that with the back 5 because you have more passing options, more security if it goes wrong, right?
Yep.
If John Stones gets tackled, he's then got 2 centre-backs still covering. And essentially the idea was, now that we're more confident doing that, we can now just have 2 centre-backs and we can add an extra forward and call it a 4-3-3.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so I would see it as a step backwards to go back to the 5-3-2. And what England are all about right now is stepping forwards, right? So this game is to prepare for the Croatia game. Croatia game, they'll play 4-3-3, so has to be 4-3-3 against the US.
Right.
And I'm going to delete this part of the podcast if it turns out to be a 5-3-2.
I was wondering about that. Anything else to say about England, Mr. Grove?
I mean, lots, but I don't want to drag us down a 3 Lions rabbit hole.
All right, I appreciate that. So then we'll transition over to the U.S. national team. But first, we should probably get in a word from today's sponsor.
Oh, it's one of our favorites. It's Away Days. Away Days is an independent clothing brand out of Boston. They are famous, I want to say, at least Total Soccer Show famous, for the mystery kit. I want to talk mystery kit first, but then I want to remind people they have all kinds of other offerings as well.
All right. Go ahead and talk mystery kits then.
Oh, okay. You just team me up to... Okay.
Pretty much. You said you want to talk about it. I will let you talk about whatever you want.
I meant with you, but okay. So the mystery kit it's $25 and you literally get a mystery kit. The only guarantee is that it won't be a big name team, so it won't be Arsenal or Spurs or something like that. It won't be Real Madrid or Barcelona. I think mine was Real Oviedo. Yours was Benfica.
Yep.
Yeah. Which again, that's a big-ish team.
Yeah.
But it's not a mainstream team that you get. You're not going to have the same jersey that everybody else is walking around in.
No, unless you're walking around like a Benfica game, in which case you might, or a Real Oviedo game, in which case you might. But no, yes, generally it's going to be a lesser-known team, which we've talked about all the many reasons why that is a fun thing. Yeah. Let alone the fact that how often do you get to open a surprise gift?
Yes.
It's a rarity.
The surprise is very enjoyable.
But as you said, there's more to Away Days than just the mystery kits. Obviously, you can do the gift card option. They do offer that. We've got the holidays coming up, so you could do that if you aren't sure which thing the person you're buying for would like. You can go that route. But they do also have very nice apparel ranging from hoodies to T-shirts. We've talked about those before. Beanies to T-shirts. We've talked about those. But they've got new long sleeve tees in gray and black. They've got really nice hoodies that have just come out. The burgundy hoodie, I think it is.
Yep, I could see me in a burgundy hoodie or a crew neck sweater for this coming fall and winter season.
There we are. Yeah, see, they've got you covered, and with your Oviedo jersey over top, so you can look like a crazy person. Yeah.
People do that.
They do.
People do that. There's one extra new thing that I didn't know about until yesterday, the mystery patch. Mystery patch.
That's interesting.
Like a crest.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how Away Days have managed to acquire these, but they have patches that you can receive to either, you can apply it to another shirt, or you can just, have the patch as I don't know what the word would be, sort of a cool collectible.
A keepsake? Yeah.
Keepsake or collectible. Yeah.
A cool keepsake or collectible.
There you go.
You kind of box yourself in there with the alliteration.
So Away Days Football, home of the mystery kits and also these wonderfully branded T-shirts and hoodies and sweaters and hats. Go to awaydaysfootball.com. If you use the discount code TSS, that's TSS, you'll get 15% off anything you see at awaydaysfootball.com. Thank you to Away Days for sponsoring today's show.
All right, let's talk some U.S. national team, U.S. men's national team.
I've heard of them.
We do have the women's national team currently playing as we record this.
We don't know the score, right?
We don't, but I heard it wasn't very good.
Really? as in a performance or the score?
The performance.
Okay. The only thing I know is I was wrong to suggest Kim Little might be playing. Yep. Thanks to Alan Fraser, he let me know that she got a broken leg.
Yeah.
She got a broken leg in October. I hope she's back for the World Cup. We'll review the US-Scotland game later this week.
All right, that works for me.
Okay.
But in the meantime, let's talk U.S. men's national team then. As we said, Zach Steffen, Darlington Nagbe out, Klinsmann in. We are unsure of the fitness of Sargent and Robinson, but I don't know if Josh Sargent would have started anyway.
So what's the Sargent problem?
I think he came in with a right ankle strain, so he has been training on his own, which I guess means he was not taking part in like scrimmages or heavy training. It was more maybe running and doing drills that way.
So that suggests that we won't see him against England, at least to start.
It does. Yeah,
the other
least
option
not as
is
a starter,
Bobby Wood, so we can sort of pencil Bobby Wood in as the starting striker. Yeah,
but since we're kind of moving into where we think people might fit, we should probably start with what do you think the shape will be? And we have a rough idea of one thing or another, or maybe something in between.
I mean, honestly, I don't know. But Dave Sarachan has favoured 4-1-4-1, I guess statistically is the most used formation. But also against tougher teams, he's gone 4-2-3-1, right? Against Colombia, we had, Bradley and Acosta as two holding midfielders. And then there's also the big weird difference now is the presence of Christian Pulisic, right? He is available. He is with the team. We expect him to start. So I don't know if we do the 4-1-4-1 with Pulisic on the right or the 4-2-3-1 and instead of Julian Green as the number 10, he's on the roster, maybe Christian Pulisic as that number 10 in a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah, I mean, it complicates things if you go the Green Pulisic route just because it then is one fewer midfielder that you can have sort of shifting back and forth.
Yep.
And I would say it's even further complicated by another player who wasn't there for the last round of friendlies, Weston McKennie, is back in contention as well. So that's another central midfielder we could and very likely will see. So I would say I'm not really comfortable saying like I think it's going to be this one versus this one or where Christian Pulisic is going to play. I guess maybe we'll get to that the more we talk. But right now, I am comfortable in saying that I think it will be some version of a 4-1-4-1 or a 4-2-3-1 where basically if it is the lone, say it's Will Trapp as an example, Will Trapp by himself, I imagine whomever else is more of like a number 8 will be dropping in and at times it will look like a 4-2-3-1.
So you'll probably remember this. After the Peru game, we talked a lot about how we loved how Kellen Acosta kind of did both jobs, right? It was a 4-1-4-1 with Trapp sitting deepest, but Acosta would often come back and sit alongside him when he felt it was necessary and then would go forward and join the rest of the midfielders when he thought that was necessary. In a weird way, I think this would, for me, it'd be pleasant to end the debate between 4-2-3-1 and 4-1-4-1 and just have a shape that splits the difference with Acosta intelligently doing both things.
You mean end the debate until Dave Sarachan is no longer the U.S. national team manager?
Yeah. Until January.
Yeah, exactly.
At the very least. I guess that should be part of our preview, but I guess everybody knows these are Dave Sarachan's final 2 games as US men's national team manager.
That's what you think.
Very likely.
That's what you think.
This is a surprise.
You never know. You never know. Yes.
The look in your eye, Taylor.
We expect it will be. So maybe let's go an easier route then. We said Zach Steffen will not be there due to injury. That leaves your goalkeepers, as we said, Brad Guzan, who I think was one of the late arrivals to camp, Ethan Horvath, and Jonathan Klinsmann. If you're going the emotional route, I feel like it would make more sense to start Brad Guzan for this one and then Ethan Horvath when you're playing in Belgium. But I think that's
Guzan would be having like a Wayne Rooney-style homecoming.
Yeah, perfectly.
But
exactly.
much less low-key.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times he was able to play at Wembley in his England club career.
Ooh, Villa got to that one FA Cup final. I'm not sure if he was there or not.
I don't know.
At the time. I wish I'd looked that up.
Yeah. You can go ahead and look it up now if you want.
Actually, quick sidebar. I don't know if this is me being an England fan, but I keep feeling like I always hear about opposition players feeling like it's a big thing to play at Wembley, like home of football and all that sort of stuff. I'll be interested to see if any of the US players feel that same way.
I can think of two who probably feel that way.
Anthony Robinson and Cameron Carter-Vickers.
Those would be the two.
Right, but what about non-English players, right? I wonder if Wembley still has this like hallowed turf, like home of football thing for, I know, Weston McKennie, right, who has no English connection that I know of.
I bet probably not, because I think for younger players,
because they knocked down the old Wembley.
That, but also I think for younger players, it's probably just not one of the stadiums that you think of when you think of those iconic footballing grounds nowadays. I think that's probably Camp Nou. I think that's probably the Bernabeu. Maybe it's homerism, but I would say like Old Trafford probably has more significance to a young American player than Wembley. I would say that for sure. I would say Anfield the same. I really do think that way. I feel like,
interesting.
And I think especially because
just because club football has become so much bigger.
Yeah, I think so. And also, I mean, because like Wembley is what Spurs' temporary home ground or has been there. So like I think it diminishes a little bit.
It'd be nice for Cameron Carter-Vickers to play.
You hear more about like NFL games being played there and things like that. So I think it diminishes the overall importance of Wembley a little bit, and I think England have done that too.
If it's no good anymore, just sell it.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, sorry, I deliberately sidetracked us.
You deliberately did.
So Guzan, or I wanted to say more professional.
Well, all I was saying is I think that like the emotional side of me has this idea like, oh, you play Horvath when you're playing in Belgium because that's where he plays, but it's not even the same city. So I think it's probably more likely that you play Horvath against England because he's been there, he's been in the camp longer. Brad Guzan, you give a little bit of rest since he's just come from the playoffs, then you play him against Italy.
This is a thing we haven't talked about, that just come from the playoffs aspect. So on this roster are, 4 players who played in Major League Soccer playoffs Sunday night, or afternoon, I guess. Brad Guzan, Aaron Long, Tyler Adams, Will Trapp all played on Sunday. The England team met up on Monday. The very best those guys could have done is got there sort of late on Monday. So US only have 3 days before to practice. They will have missed one of the days. So I wouldn't be surprised if Guzan, Long, Adams, Trapp possibly do not get to feature against England because they join up late.
I would say it's not quite as big of a deal in my mind because it's not as though a lot of the players in that England squad weren't also playing on Sunday.
Right, but they live very near where they are. They have to do an international flight.
Exactly. It comes down to the travel accommodations and how those American players traveled. Because if you were able to recline and sleep the whole way, maybe it's not as big of a deal as if you were sitting upright in a semi-uncomfortable position for a 7-hour flight or whatever.
What do you think about the lack of training day that they missed? Like in my head, like maybe you need 3 days to prepare the game plan to face England, where these guys are going to be missing one of those days. Do you not think that's a big enough reason to think they won't play?
I don't, honestly, because I think the players you're talking about, Will Trapp has played a lot of games under Dave Sarachan at this point. Or, like, given the number of games Dave Sarachan has had, Will Trapp has featured in many of them. So I feel like there's almost an argument to be made that you play the people that are most comfortable, that you have the most familiarity with, even if they haven't had that day. Will Trapp still maybe knows more from what he's already done for Dave Sarachan than a person who's trying to figure it out with an extra day of training.
All right, so you're not prepared to like rule them out from the England game? Like I would have been, but I think you've persuaded me otherwise then. At least for the purposes of this podcast.
I think it also factors in that like Will Trapp, I mean, sorry, Columbus fans, but his season is done at this point. So it's not like he's just come from the playoffs and he's going
Columbus
back.
fans knew. They knew.
But it's like, but it's not like he's playing and then going back to playing the playoffs again. I would say maybe that factors in a little bit, that you don't want to have Tyler Adams play both games, for example, because he's just arrived, play a game. I mean, I would be happily do that, but I'm not sure Dave Sarachan will do that, and I'm not sure. Given he's probably trying to keep his relationship up with anybody he can, just in case somebody comes calling. Maybe he doesn't want to anger any clubs either. So that would be the only wrinkle there, but I would not be surprised at all to see, say, Will Trapp and Brad Guzan start. I still think Ethan Horvath gets this start for what he's been doing for Club Brugge.
Playing, which is a significant improvement upon recent things.
Shutting folks out in the Champions League.
So we're going to say Horvath to start then?
Yeah.
Are we basically picking our team here? Is this
how
we're doing
it?
Okay, so whether it's 4-1, 4-1 or 4-2-3-1, we think it's going to be a back four, right? There's a chance that Sarachan does what he does against France and just decides we're going to pack this and put 5 men back there. But we'll leave that hanging out there just as an unlikely scenario. Starting centre backs, Matt Miazga has not been playing all that much for Nantes, but he still looks like the most comfortable, confident US central defender, so I would pick him to start this game.
I would too, and I think if you look at this from the perspective, again, of Dave Sarachan's we think very likely final games in charge of the U.S. national team, there's an element, like I wouldn't say it's like his send-off series or anything like that.
We did call it that for an entire podcast.
But I think he wants to end it on maybe his terms. I think you created a cake scenario. I think he wants to end it on his terms as favorably as possible, and I think one easy way to do that would be to say, like, yeah, I know Matt Miazga's not doing very well at club level right now, but he's been doing well for me, so he is my starter, and you stick with those two. It kind of cements that reputation.
Here's the more sort of just analytical reason as well. The thing we talked about with England set pieces. I mean, Matt Miazga is just one of the bigger guys. You know what I mean? For example, if it's Miazga or Cameron Carter-Vickers, I would say Miazga is better in the air. I would want Miazga in there just to defend against those corners and free kicks that England will be sending in.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways the back four is the easiest to choose because I think when everybody was fit, I think it would have been Anthony Robinson and DeAndre Yedlin with Miazga and Brooks in between. And I still think it's probably DeAndre Yedlin. I have concerns there. We've talked about them many times. I don't know if it's Anthony Robinson for the reasons we mentioned with the injury. So in that case, the most likely would then be Jorge Villafana. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say Jorge Villafana on the left, DeAndre Yedlin on the right. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does to me. And Brooks and Miazga in the middle. That is a test for Jorge Villafana.
And DeAndre Yedlin, yeah.
And DeAndre Yedlin. Well, but Yedlin has at least come up against a lot of these players before,
True.
Whereas Villafana has not least because he didn't get to go to the World Cup. Mm-hmm. Partly his fault for not covering that cross, but he didn't get to go to the World Cup, so he's never really had that experience of, here's a bunch of terrifying players coming at you.
Yeah.
You know
wait, which cross are you putting on him?
The Trinidad cross that came in.
The shot or the one that took... I was going to say the shot or the one that came off of Omar Gonzalez?
No, the shot. Well, okay. I can't remember which goal it was. It was definitely a thing where Villafana wasn't closing down enough, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
But yeah, he's back, and he's probably going to be starting because of that Robinson injury. I've got to be honest, I would have liked to see Anthony Robertson get a game at Wembley and get a game against another high-end winger, be it Sterling or Sancho or whatever, because I feel like he's still learning and we're still watching him learn, play against high-level opposition, but it looks like that won't come to pass this time around.
It does look that way. I would say this, though, that if you're looking at like a team that's going to be a little bit more defensive, and maybe there's a chance that, say, if it's Kenny Saif starting on the left again, that did not work very well last time we saw that, and it didn't work well specifically with the combination with Robinson. So maybe having Villafana, who we expect to be a little bit more maybe defense-minded, especially against England. Especially against England
compared to Robinson,
in that attack. Yeah. So I feel like maybe that works out, and then if you do get Robinson fit in time for it to be like a Robinson-Romain Gall scenario on that left wing against Italy, then I'm excited for that game as well.
Well, actually, let's talk about overall approach then to this game
before
we go through naming the rest of the team. We do expect England to have most of the ball, correct? So we expect the US to be kind of sitting back in many ways.
I would say so.
So we then also expect that a lot of the US chances are going to essentially be counterattacks.
Yeah.
That's a good way to look at this game, I think. So it's worth just putting it out there that when we're selecting our 11 and what we'd like them to do, that's what we're keeping in mind. This isn't going to be a game where the US dominates possession and can move the ball around the field and make England chase.
Yeah. I think that's definitely the case. I think that probably means it's going to be another frustrating game for Bobby Wood, who will be doing a lot of running up top to put people under pressure or at least cause some issues for England. Maybe he won't get a lot of support doing that. And then I think it's going to be a lot of looking long for Bobby Wood and hoping he can settle the ball and hopefully have a runner off of him. Yeah. So I think it's going to be we're going to be looking for moments to be happy for Bobby Wood in this game against England.
All right. Before we move on to the midfield, should we talk about today's other sponsor?
Let's do it.
Which is LinkedIn. So the right hire can make a huge impact on your business. That's why it's important to find the right person. Posting a job to LinkedIn is a great way to find the right person for your business.
And just to clarify, because I always think of LinkedIn as a place where you go to either basically have Facebook for professionals, or you're using it to like update your resume so people can see what you're doing. You don't often think, at least I don't often think of LinkedIn as a site for posting job opportunities, for posting opportunities to apply. And that is something that they very much offer, and it's a very good way to go about finding the right candidate for your desired position.
And it makes the most sense, right? Because people are on there for work. Yep. Apparently 70% of the US workforce is already on LinkedIn. So if you post on there, you get your job opportunity in front of the right people. If the US national team, the US men's national team, was posting an opportunity on LinkedIn, and for one day only, the borders between national teams and cap ties were down, who would the US hope to attract? And for what position and who would they hope to get?
Yeah, I was going to say, so first of all, we know that you can't just put up like a targeted position. That's not allowed. It's got to be a general position that allows a variety of people to apply.
Oh, I'd be putting centre forward.
I mean, that's still general enough. It can't be like,
I see.
I want a left back named Marcelo to apply for this job.
Yes.
So you'd go centre forward, would you?
I mean, it's the first thing that came to mind. I would put up centre forward because we haven't got time to wait for Josh Sargent. And I would hope that someone like someone who you think of as stuck with their national team, but maybe unhappy and looking for other opportunities. Someone like Robert Lewandowski might think, oh, you know what? I'll give something else a try. So maybe we could get Robert Lewandowski, get him playing at the Copa America in 2020.
All right, so since you're going the route of focusing on an individual player, which I think this is why you're not going to be head of HR for the Total Soccer Show, but what would
you
be...
are welcome to that job, sir.
What would be the characteristics that you would post for? Like, what's the job description for a center forward for the U.S. national team under Daryl Grove's HR direction?
Tall, Polish. No, so I would want it to be essentially. I know this is obviously reaching, but you want the very best person for your job, right? I want someone who's complete, right? Someone who, if we are like desperately sending long balls forward because we've been under pressure, someone who that ball is going to stick to like glue. But I also want someone with a bit of a burst of pace to get away from someone. I want someone obviously who can finish, someone who's dangerous on set pieces. I'm basically just listing all the qualities of a really good centre forward.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Why not?
There you go. All right, why not? I think for me, there's definitely a lot of vulnerabilities. I think you're not wrong with centre forward. I think the left back problems that we've already talked about are present. Same thing for right back a little bit.
The other thing I posted was left back, I think.
I might go with a number 6. I might just go straight up because we have options there. But
it's more like we need to train our current workforce to play there. But if that isn't going to work, we should advertise for a straight up number 6.
And there's also maybe
put it in French.
Maybe a little bit of Peter Principle in there of like you can have people who play that number 6, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best possible person for that role. You might just have to fit them in there. I want somebody who kind of solidifies number 6, so then you can have other people looking at other opportunities. We don't have to be like, well, I guess Weston McKennie could be a 6, but Tyler Adams could be a 6. Maybe Keaton Parks. Suddenly we're trying a lot of different people. If you solve that one, I think it frees you up for a lot of other possibilities.
What if Michael Bradley applied?
We would say, like, okay, we've definitely got your application on file, and I appreciate you updating your LinkedIn, and that's great.
But we're waiting for N'Golo Kante or Jorginho.
I mean,
he's already flipped national teams, right?
Many people are allowed to apply. I mean, right now we've already established I'm the number 8 left back, so I feel like there should be more people applying for that job too.
I think I'll put you number 7 left back. All right, so if you would like to post a job on LinkedIn, you go to linkedin.com/TSS and you'll get $50 off your first job post. That's linkedin.com/TSS to get $50 off your first job post. Remember, a new hire is made every 10 seconds using LinkedIn. So my Lewandowski scenario, it could happen in just 10 seconds.
And that's all it takes for him to score, too. So there you go.
Right? It's linkedin.com/TSS for $50 off your first job post. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, so should we continue on with our U.S. national team lineup predicting?
Yeah, so we did the goalkeeper, back four. We gave a brief overview of how we think the U.S. is going to end up playing, which is somewhat defensive and needing to hit on the counter. The key to all of that is who your midfielders are.
Yep.
Right? So
that's why you want that job posting.
If we're saying 4-1-4-1, I guess let's go with the job posting you mentioned. The number 6. Who do you think will be playing number 6 for the United States against England? Or who would you like to see play number 6 for the United States against England?
Under Dave Sarkin, it's only been a few people. Like we saw Michael Bradley there briefly in a 4-2-3-1. We saw Weston McKennie there against Bolivia, I believe it was.
He was brilliant, but I'm not sure that counts.
Yeah, exactly. Generally, it's been Will Trapp, and I think that will probably be the case here. It could very well be somebody else. It could be a variety of people, and like if you go like a 2-man midfield or 2-man defensive midfield, that's a possibility.
If all things are equal and everybody's available and the travel thing and missing a day isn't a problem for Will Trapp and he's perfectly fit, I think you're right. I think we end up seeing Will Trapp as the number 6.
Yes.
If you were picking the team, would you pick Will Trapp as your number 6?
I think I would, surprisingly enough. I'm surprised to say that, but
because he's the most natural fit?
I think so, and because it allows me to play everybody else that I would want to play where I want to play them.
Interesting. So for me, I would like to see Weston McKennie get a go.
Okay.
Just because we haven't seen it apart from against Bolivia. I mean, I think he is more suited to being farther up the pitch, but it's kind of like the thing you talked about in the LinkedIn ad is that if it's not Will Trapp, then someone else is going to have to do it. And I think it would be nice to give Weston McKennie a go.
And you've already changed my mind. Yeah, I'm good with Weston McKennie because I kind of forgot. I really did. I think we do this a lot, or I do this a lot. I forget about Kellen Acosta. And specifically, I forget about how good he's looked at what you talked about, dropping in, but then stepping and pressing when the situation requires for it. Worth noting, Marky Delgado looked very good at that as well against Peru. But I think
They almost took it in turns, right? But I feel like Acosta did it more.
It did it more, and I think we've seen him do it more consistently, at least recently. And so I like the idea of it being a Weston McKennie number 6 with Tyler Adams and Kellen Acosta as your two other central midfielders who can kind of help with the pressing but help with the defensive positioning as well.
I think it will be all about just having Acosta and Adams being smart enough to know, all right, this is when I need to drop in. This is when I can step forward. It's easier said than done. And I think, honestly, that's one of the reasons why maybe Adams might not get the nod is because he won't have been there long enough. But I do want to say, I said this to you off air, if Tyler Adams plays against England, almost no England fans will know who he is. I guarantee he'll impress people. And not just because he's some supreme footballer, but because if English people love nothing, they love a midfielder who runs really hard everywhere.
I foresee one of your English friends asking you, like, who's the little fellow who ran around a bunch?
Yes, absolutely. Even if he doesn't touch the ball, they'll be really impressed by him covering
He's
ground.
physical, too. Like, I'm with you. I can definitely hear that. But again, I wouldn't be surprised, to your point, I wouldn't be surprised if it's not Tyler Adams, if it is Will Trapp and Weston McKennie and Kellen Acosta. Maybe it is Marquis Delgado. Maybe Dave Sarachan was impressed by his performance.
Also, the weird thing is, the three midfielders we named as our favourites to start, I could see it all rotating. I could see Acosta as the 6. I could see Adams as the 6. I would not be against that, by the way. I think that might be a good use of Tyler Adams. But we could have this circular debate forever. I feel
we could.
Like. Yeah.
I still think this is why I go back to, if we were doing the LinkedIn thing, why I would want a
specialist,
consistent, decided, dedicated number 6. Because
someone who's never played any other position.
Yeah, sure. They were born in a number 6 isolation unit, but they had to play there their whole life. But I say that mostly because I don't think this is not a bad thing. Having choice, and especially having the players that we're talking about as your choices, I think that's a very good thing. It indicates the strength that the United States has in central midfield. But you can get to that point where it could be that or it could be this, or maybe we try this, let's try this again. And if you're kind of always experimenting and moving around a little bit, you have to have at least some consistency in there, some steadiness in there to allow the experimentation. If everything is experimentation, you run into problems.
And I think that's what ends up being Will Trapp a lot, right? Because even despite his limits, it's sort of like, okay, he knows how to do it, so we put him there. I do want to just say, for anyone who's been very confused by us talking about this number 6 role, it is the deepest defensive midfielder. It's the guy that sits in front of the back four. Just want to get that out there, just in case there were one person out there who's like, what are you talking about?
If an even simpler way, if we're going to avoid numbers, I would say he is the DCM, the defensive central midfielder.
DCM.
Then I would say you can have or a CDM if you want to do that. Then you could have a CM, who I think of as more just a pure central midfielder, like a Weston McKennie in my mind. And then you could have a CAM or an ACM, an attacking midfielder.
Oh, you definitely haven't confused people.
Which I would say, defensive, attacking, and central is what I would say. And the more attack-minded option would probably be a player like Julian Green if you wanted to have a central, quote-unquote, number 10.
I can't see that being happening unless we have an actual 4-2-3-1. Yeah,
agreed.
So I think we're going to say we're going to go with the 4-1-4-1 and keep it like that, right?
Yep.
Okay. So who are our wide players?
Sure. This is where I have maybe an unconventional way of approaching this. Not Christian Pulisic. Christian Pulisic is who I have on the right. That's not an unconventional pick. But I would say Romain Gall is the one that I want to see start on the left. And that's mostly because from what we watched from him for Malmo, he seems like a player because he's usually a left central midfielder who can go wide, and it seems like that's what Dave Sarachan has wanted the left midfielder to be in recent games for the U.S. is a player who.
Wait, are you saying left centre mid or left wing?
Left wing, but I think Dave Sarachan wants that left winger to come central at times to really block off the middle, but then he'll go wide and help the left back as well. And it seems like the players who have been there for the U.S. lately haven't quite understood that job.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about that. So the big problem we saw against Colombia and against Brazil was the left-sided guy would always, we would be in this 4-4-2 shape. We would be quite deep and defensive and somewhat ready to apply pressure, but only when they came towards us, right? When they crossed the halfway line and were getting to us. And Kenny Saif and Jonathan Amen, I think, both did a not great job of applying pressure in the right places and making sure that the left back was not exposed. And I would say you may be right that Romain Gall is the guy to solve that problem.
It's the one that I would most like to see, because I would say even Timothy Weah, when he was switched over to the left wing on occasion, it felt more so like that was a pure you go attack and do stuff down that left wing than it was drop in and help defensively.
Weirdly, he seemed to me better defensively than Ayman or Kenny Saif, but then it's a very defensive thing to ask Tim Weah to do.
Well,
right?
It is, and my guess would be that because he is not naturally defensive, he is usually a striker or a winger. I feel like maybe the instructions were just a bit simpler to him in terms of, look, we want you focused heavily on attack and like how we want you to connect through like your attacking options and your support options. Defensively, like maybe like get back and listen to Anthony Robinson, or get back and like be in a defensive shape out wide. And it's less of that. This is where I want it to be Romain Gall, because it's less of the or what I think it will be of like come central at times, but then go wide at times, but then drop in and be like a secondary left back at times, but make sure you still get forward. That's a bit more of an ask.
But now he's not playing, right?
Who?
Tim Weah. If it's Romain Gall on the left,
that's what I'm saying.
It's Christian Pulisic on the right, Tim Weah's not starting.
No, what I'm saying is I think Timothy Weah, when he was playing left wing, maybe it was more of a simplified defensive instruction because they were focused on attacking. I think Romain Gall can do both of those things. That's what I'm leaning towards with my pick.
But I'm saying if you pick Romain Gall, that means Tim Weah doesn't get in your starting 11.
Correct.
You're okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. And then let's talk Christian Pulisic on the right. We haven't seen him in a good long while. Am I right in saying we haven't seen him since the Bolivia game?
For the US national team, yeah.
I would argue that if the US is going to counterattack, he is obviously the key guy to make that happen, right? Give him some open field to run at, or give him sort of he can pin a defender back and it's him versus them. He is the US player that I'm most excited about doing that.
All right. My question for you then, though, is it seems like whoever he'll be, it's probably going to be Luke Shaw if he's on the right.
Or Chilwell.
I feel like Luke Shaw or Ben Chilwell can handle speed, though, and like the kind of technical precision that Pulisic brings. And I do think he's going to need somebody who can help him with the 1-2s or can alleviate some of the pressure, so it's not just him going at the defender every single time.
So the tough part is then it needs to be Bobby Wood come in short to show for the ball, or it needs to be one of those two central midfielders, like say it's Adams and Acosta. One of those on his side needs to be joining him. Maybe DeAndre Yedlin needs to be joining him outright, but I'd be scared about our fullbacks getting forward, knowing that England can very quickly get down the channel. So one thing I say is maybe I don't want the fullbacks getting too far forward.
I agree. And so I think if I had to like make a prediction, I feel like we're going to see Christian Pulisic be frustrated by a lack of support in the first 15 minutes or so. Ooh. And my sign that things are going better or improving will be if you start to see more consistency from the U.S. when they counterattack, because I can foresee a moment when he goes bombing forward and then has nobody around him and just somebody wins the ball off, and then he's 40 yards away from everybody, and that being frustrating. Or I can see him like maybe not having Bobby Wood as an outlet, and so he passes the ball to nobody because he thought Bobby Wood would be there. But then as the game progresses, maybe we see them figure it out a little bit more. Maybe he holds some of those runs and we don't see him bombing up and down every single time. And that's what I would like to see, is the U.S. sort of growing into the game and not having to make dramatic fixes or dramatic switches that we've seen in previous friendlies.
I feel like we will see the U.S. really be defense first for the first at least half an hour or so, probably the entire first half. And maybe later on we see Tim Weah enter the game. Maybe we see Pulisic pulled a bit more central later on, and maybe a bit of a change in shape. It's hard to predict, obviously, but that's definitely a thing I could see happening.
One thing I wanted to ask you then, so you had talked a little bit before we started recording about I think maybe wanting to see them, not expecting them to, but maybe wanting to see the U.S. pressing a little bit more and trying to kind of put England under pressure given the vulnerabilities we've previously talked about with playing out of the back.
Well, okay, so here's the two weird things, right? England are going to have the ball, right? There's not much we can do about that. That's going to be a fact of this game, I'm pretty sure. I expect the US to retreat and look almost like a 4-5-1 or a 4-4-2 or something like that, and stay kind of compact and tight. But then occasionally, I would like the US to spring a press and try and surprise, say, John Stones and Joe Gomez and the centre-backs as they're bringing the ball out. Because, in my opinion, as an England fan, there's still a slight weakness there, which is that they've been told to do it. They do it a lot. They're mostly very good at it. But there seems to be one or two mistakes a game that can be taken advantage of. And rather than just seeing the US cower in their own half, I would like just the occasional surprise press onto England defenders as they're carrying the ball out of the back.
I mean, I feel like you're just trying to be the bully and bait the U.S. into getting exposed. Like, you can be defensive and not be cowering.
I'm really talking about this from a U.S. perspective, though, right? The key is to stay solid, to protect your house for as long as you can, but just occasionally spring a bit of a pressing trap where we go over the halfway line and sort of chase John Stones down.
All right, but I genuinely mean this. Why did you say cowering in their own half then? Because is there a difference between being defensive and like cowering, or is that just you using that as a way to explain?
For a bit of drama.
I see. Okay,
yes.
I was genuinely wondering though, like, is there too deep? Is there too defensive in your mind, or was that just embellishing?
Yeah, well, actually, I think the thing the US hasn't done is end up like being way, way, way too deep.
Yeah.
Right? We've never really seen the US with like all the defenders in the box and all the midfielders across the top of the box and strikers just ahead. We tend to at least get our team spread from the halfway line backwards.
Yeah, I don't think they have the discipline for that.
I guess by carrying, I mean from the halfway line backwards.
Yeah. Okay.
But I would like to see us occasionally go beyond the halfway line and go pressure the England defenders.
All right.
Here's what I don't want to see, and I think this is really important, is a thing I think we've seen too much under Dave Sarachan, which is just having, say, Bobby Wood applying pressure to England defenders, and then it's always been like, say, Tyler Adams like popping out and applying a bit of pressure, and then coming back. And then like Tim Weah would come out and then come back. And it you know what I'm talking about, where it's felt kind of uncoordinated, where there's just, bit of pressure, but I don't really mean it, I'm going to come back. And really all you're doing there, in my opinion, is briefly opening up a hole that could be exploited and then retreating quickly and closing that hole. Yeah. I would say just keep everything closed and don't go and, like, you either go all in and try and win the ball, or you go all in on keeping your shape.
Or I would say there is a middle ground in there, which I think the United States also hasn't occupied either. But it is like you could have Timothy Weah step, but then everybody kind of moves forward 3 yards with him. And I think it's the coordinated
Tim Weah starting
step,
with your team now.
I'm just saying for purposes of your analogy, you could have everybody sort of step a little bit. It doesn't have to be everybody goes charging at the ball and trying to win the ball right back, but it doesn't mean everybody has to step off. But I'm with you that I think there have been times when it was one player goes and everybody else kind of sits. That I would say is definitely going to be problematic.
It's a sign of not great coaching, I feel like. Yeah. Or maybe a not great plan that's been implemented and turns out just not to be a good idea to begin with.
Speaking of potentially not great plans, I would also like to, because we talked about this very briefly, how do you think the United States should approach defending set pieces?
Okay. So, we talked, it feels a while ago now, about how England have a lot of designed set pieces where they will set screens or they will have balls that go to the far post and then back across. I've seen the US. I went back and watched some US corners against Colombia. The US defends man-to-man marking, and usually 2 players sitting around the 6-yard box to attack the ball. I would kind of say go with what we know, but we just got to be hyper aware. Don't get screened. Don't get picked. Yeah. Right?
Yes, I would say that. I would say worth remembering.
So would you mind explaining to people what the screen or the pick is? I just realized people might not know what that is.
I mean, yeah, it's basically just like if I've got if Darrow is waiting behind me and we've already established Darrow's going to make a near post run, then I might basically try to block off the person who's marking me, but use that kind of chaos and confusion to also block off the player who's marking Darrow. So now Darrow has maybe a yard or two more space to go attack that ball and not have the pressure of a defender.
So you help me lose my man, essentially, exactly, right? Yeah. And England are pretty good at this. So what's one possible way to avoid that, apart from just being hyper aware?
Well, one thing that definitely benefited England in the World Cup was VAR. And I think that is worth remembering, that they got some VAR penalties, and I think also defenders were very aware that VAR was there, so maybe everybody was a little bit more standoffish. You're not going to have that here.
You think we could be more grabby now?
You could be a little bit grabbier. I think there could just be maybe a little bit of a nudge when Harry Kane starts to make his run. But I think it's a very difficult thing to say, and this is why I'm not the national team coach, but it's difficult to be not overly focused on one player, because you can do that, and it's not like all the England players aren't capable of winning a header and scoring a goal themselves. But then you also can't take your focus off of those obvious goal threats like Harry Kane. So I think it's about finding maybe a hybrid approach that allows you to have everybody marked up, but then you've got a few players free, and you can assign them. It's what you do
with the spare players, right?
Exactly, and then it can be up to you. You can assign them to be like secondary cover for a few key players, or it can just be about you each have say you've got 3 free players, you each have your third of the 18 that you're policing, and you've got to aggressively attack that zone if the ball looks like it's going in there. The other 2 are then dropping into support.
I would guess is already part of their job is to, if you're free from marking, then your job is probably to attack the ball if it comes in your zone, right? So we maybe just have to apply an extra layer of responsibility that also, if Harry Kane's loose in your zone, grab him.
Yep. Yeah.
But don't make it look too obvious.
True. I'm of mixed emotions about that idea of free players to attack the ball, because I do think that if you have 2 of them and that ball goes to the back post, the person at the near post is effectively doing nothing at that point. And so that's where...
But you don't know where the ball's going to come, right? So you've got to cover near and far.
True, but I think that's part of the problem, though, is that if you're that near post person and you know you're free, I do think, maybe this is just me, an amateur soccer player talking, but I feel like sometimes there's an inclination to, I've got to do something because I don't want to just be standing here not doing anything, so I'll go try to attack that ball even though it's not in my zone.
Do you do that? I guess you're usually
no.
marking it.
I'll usually either mark somebody or I will then try to like step to the top of the box, because if the ball spills there, then you're there to kind of police that, and it's one fewer body in the way of the goalkeeper. But I think you can have too many people trying to attack that ball, and it can create chaos.
How about this as an idea? So that you can have someone zone and someone providing extra cover. What if for set pieces, this might be too cowering, but I'm going to suggest it anyway. What about we call everybody back? So normally you might have like Bobby Wood ready to go at the top of the box, or you might have Christian Pulisic ready to go. What if we get almost everybody in the box to defend England's set pieces? So too much respect or the correct amount of respect?
I think the correct amount of respect. And I say that because I think that's been an approach that teams have taken more recently of... Instead of having that outlet for a quick counter, that rarely ever comes. And if it
Man
does,
City do this, right?
Yeah, and if it does, then you're still sort of overly targeting that player, or it's at best going to be a 2v1 with the one attacker.
It's going to be Bobby Wood fights. He gets by someone, but then he gets taken down or he loses the ball.
And so if you have everybody back, then even if you clear it and England collect the ball at midfield or 40 yards from your goal, you still have everybody behind the ball, and now you can all slowly step together. Or if you are able to collect it at, say, like 25 yards from your goal, and now you have numbers who can charge for it together and try to combine.
Best case scenario, you mount a magnificent Belgium-style counter-attack,
where
everybody moves the ball quickly and we do like a weave all the way up the field.
Yeah, and so I'm not even saying they'll worry about this that much, but it will be interesting to see where Bobby Wood is positioned when the United States is defending a corner. If he's up near midfield, you have an idea of what they're looking to do. If he's back maybe 25 yards from goal, then it is everybody kind of all hands on deck.
Anything else you want to talk about with this game? Anything the US has to watch for? Anything the US can do to attack England?
I think it will be DeAndre Yedlin. We talked about that. But I really enjoyed what we saw from Reggie Cannon against Peru.
And it'd be a big call if Saracen decides to start Cannon over Yedlin in the country where Yedlin is employed.
It would. I wouldn't hate it. I would be very surprised if it happened, but I really liked what we saw against Reggie Cannon, and I just want to see a little bit more variety, and I want to remind DeAndre Yedlin that he's got pressure there.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense to me. Maybe they'll get one game each. You've got to remember, there is the Italy game, is the opportunity for maybe Reggie Cannon to get the start. But I guess I keep thinking of England as the toughest game. I mean, it's at least an equal challenge to play Italy, right?
I mean, one of those teams made the semifinals of the World Cup.
Which one was it?
It was England. It was England. So again, that game, Thursday, November 15th, at Wembley Stadium, the once impressive Wembley Stadium.
The hallowed Wembley Stadium. The hallowed turf of New Wembley.
I don't think you can have hallowed and new in the same sentence. ESPN2 or Unimas are your coverage options there.
3 o'clock kickoff is what we said, and it really will be 3 o'clock Eastern kickoff. We will, of course, be watching in Total Soccer Show Towers. We will have a review for you.
We'll each be in our own tower. We'll extend the drawbridges so that we can cross and then record the show.
Are we going to draw a line down the middle?
Obviously.
Can I just say, as a double fan...
No, we each have our own drawbridge that we can lower and then walk across. It's measured that perfectly.
From a dual fan perspective, I was kind of expecting you to ask this question and you didn't. I kind of hope the US wins this game, but gives England like some sort of lesson that they take into winning the Croatia game. So I've got a nice trade-off here.
I figured you'd say it at some point. But also, I mean, we've established that you have rooting interests in both camps. So, you know, your fandom is mercurial, Daryl.
Mercurial. Mm-hmm. That's a word that's not often enough applied to me, I believe.
Only when you're wearing mercurials, then it gets applied a little bit more, which is never.
Okay, I forgot. We also have scouting.
We sure do.
On today's show. So we look forward to the England-USA game, but there's lots to look forward to in the future with the young guns of the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network.
You are correct, my friend. The first young gun to talk about today comes from Wes Kaufman, scouting Ayo Akinyola, the 18-year-old American forward for Toronto FC.
Is he still on the roster? He's still on the roster.
Akinyola played in all 5 group stage games of the CONCACAF U20 Championships and scored 5 goals, 2 against Puerto Rico, 2 against 1 against US Virgin Islands, and 2 against Suriname. He is still in the squad. He is tied for second in the U.S. team for goals scored.
All right. Russell Varner is scouting Alex Mendez, also on that U20 team. He is an 18-year-old American midfielder for SC Freiburg. Russell says, in the 7-0 win over Suriname in the U20 Championships, Mendez continued his solid run of form, adding 2 goals from set pieces and an assist on a picture-perfect cross to Mark McKenzie. He finished the group stage with 5 goals, one behind former LA Galaxy Academy teammate Ulysses Yanez for the team lead, 3 assists, and remains on the roster for the next round of the competition. Russell also confirms what Darryl and Travis said on the Top Draw Soccer show, which is that Mendez is adept at reading plays, intercepting passes, and has excellent passing vision and a strong left foot. Speaking of that left foot, did you see his penalty kick?
No.
It was the classic Alex Mendez stare the keeper down.
Oh, yeah?
Till the keeper melts in front of you.
Oh, is that how it works?
Then bash that ball in the top corner.
He became a puddle?
He did.
Okay.
Mendes turns keepers to puddles.
I was just hoping it would end in pick the corner and smashed it into that corner. That's the way to take a penalty.
It did, but there was cool stuff in between.
All right, that works. Katie Sutton scouting Katie Cousins, the 22-year-old American midfielder for the University of Tennessee. Cousins was named to the All-SEC first team and played the full 90 minutes in Tennessee's NCAA tournament opener. The Volunteers won 2-1 against the University of Louisville on Bunny Shaw's second half brace. Decent result there.
That's Travis picked Bunny Shaw as a player to watch in this tournament.
He did well. Cousins was tasked with organizing the midfield, which she will need to do once again when UT takes on Arizona in the tournament's second round.
Taylor Mukaria is scouting Ademola Lookman, the 21-year-old English winger for Everton. Ademola Lookman has come on as a sub in Everton's last 4 Premier League games, and he's averaging about 20-30 minutes a game. There are rumours that Lookman could be on his way to Crystal Palace. Classic loan move in January. It is, right? Mm-hmm. With RB Leipzig also still in contention.
Always and forever, RB Leipzig, or I guess Lookman in RB Leipzig's heart. Dylan Veach scouting Kai Havertz, 19-year-old German midfielder for Bayer Leverkusen. Another 3-man defense, another loss for Leverkusen, this time at home to Leipzig. Playing on the right wing, Kai produced one of Leverkusen's only chances in the game, but it obviously was not enough as Leverkusen lost 3-0.
Everett Wolf is scouting David Brooks. Oh, this is a new scoutee. David Brooks, the 21-year-old Welsh midfielder for Bournemouth. You know David Brooks, right?
I do indeed.
The columnist?
Yes, that's the one.
After finding the net 3 times for the Cherries in October, Brooks was in the news this month when Wales manager Ryan Giggs stated that Brooks, quote, might have made the England squad had he not come to Wales, unquote. That's a compliment, I guess. Just a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
Brooks was born in England but qualifies for Wales internationally thanks to his mother. Brooks was instead named to the Wales team that will play Denmark and Albania this international break.
Yeah, it's definitely Ryan Giggs, and I get it and I appreciate that he's being honest, but it's a weird thing to say, he was good enough to play for them, but he chose to play for us instead. Yeah. Shots fired at Wales by Ryan Giggs.
Did you also see the Ryan Giggs-Gareth Bale thing?
No.
So someone asked him if he'd been watching Bale.
Uh-huh.
And
he said no, that's right, I don't have ITV or something?
It's a new thing called 11, I think, which is what La Liga is on and the Bundesliga is on in the UK. And he's like, I don't have an 11 subscription, so I haven't seen anything.
Oh, Ryan Giggs. Oh, Ryan Giggs.
Which I guess is okay-ish, but don't say it out loud.
I mean, it's more troubling because I feel like even if that's a joke, it still indicates he hasn't seen Gareth Bale play.
Right. And he could definitely write that off on his taxes.
You would think. You would expect maybe the Welsh FA would spring for that one, maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? Ryan Giggs says interesting things, not all of them that inspiring. Manny Alcantara, scouting Junior Firpo, a 22-year-old Spanish left-back for Real Betis. Also worth noting, I love Ryan Giggs. Junior Firpo may have...
Why'd you say that?
Because I feel like I was criticizing Ryan Giggs, and I'm not allowed to do that legally. Junior Firpo may have just had the best game of his young career as he helped Real Betis secure a 4-3 upset on the road against... am I pronouncing... Is it FC Barcelona? Is that who it is?
I think it's Barcelona.
Oh, Mike. Yeah.
Depends if you...
My apologies.
Depends if you went there while you were on a Eurail trip.
Of course. Junior opened the scoring in the 20th minute with a clean goal with his weak foot for his second goal in as many games. Firpo was involved in Betis' second goal of the game and would record the assist for what proved to be the game winner in the 83rd minute. I'm assuming that was while Valverde and Gerard Piqué were screaming at each other on the field.
Wow. If there hadn't been so many games that we watched this weekend, this should have been a game of the week that we reviewed.
Did you hear that? That was the drama that I saw reported. I think maybe right before we started recording that. I guess as they were tied or trailing, Piqué told Valverde, "Have Rakitic stay back. I'm gonna go up and score a goal." And then Rakitic ended up getting sent off, and it was a whole screaming match between the two. Yeah.
Kristen Mladinja is scouting Briel Embolo, the 21-year-old Swiss forward, for Schalke. Kristen says, It's with a heavy heart that I write to inform you that Briel Embolo has fractured one of his metatarsals. He will be sidelined for about 6 weeks, but won't have to have surgery, so yay?
Yeah. I mean, that's good compared to some of the injuries he's had. 6 weeks isn't as long as many others.
Yeah.
But let's end on a slightly happier note.
He doesn't have brilliant luck, does he?
You proud of what you did there?
Very.
I feel like you got a lot of positive response to Tyler, the Creator, in regards to Tyler Adams' performance, and it's just reinvigorated a series of bad puns for you. Nick Wilwert scouting Bence Mervo, the 23-year-old Hungarian attacker for Győri ETO FC in the Hungarian second division. Of course.
Wow, his career has not gone how we expected.
What? Bence Mervo is back with his home club, Győri ETO FC, after 2 years with FC DAC in Switzerland. Whew, lots of letters going on. Where he made only 10 appearances. Bence has since scored 2 goals and already has more minutes than any other year in his pro career in the Hungarian second division.
All right, onwards and upwards, Bence Mervo.
We assume.
Yeah.
We hope.
Thank you to everybody for your scouting reports. We always appreciate them. Of course, if you want to join the Scouting Network, it is totalsoccershow.com/join. Taylor, we are going to be taking Wednesday off to work on a super secret project.
Yes, we are.
Which will not be so super secret once we've finished it. But for right now, it's shrouded in secrecy.
That is correct,
yeah.
Bird.
And then we'll be back. Would you call me?
Bird.
Bird happening, yeah. And the next show that we'll be doing on this show...
The thing about this project is it's secret. But once we talk about it, it's not so secret.
Then this Thursday, we'll be back in studio to watch England versus USA and give you the full review and rundown of that game. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
The thing about me, Daryl, is that I say to you, Daryl Grove, my co-host, right back at you, Daryl Grove, my co-host.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again on Thursday.